Now, we're going to have some great fun with this. Joining me now, my great friend Steve Forbes, Forbes Media Chairman, Editor-in-Chief, and author of Inflation, a must-read book. Steve Forbes, welcome back.
Good to be back.
I know. Did you feel the forgiveness from Janet Yellen? Was it coming through? The tears? Did you feel any of that emotionally?
No, it was fake forgiveness. I'm humble. Therefore, forgive us for what has happened. But as you pointed out, the economic malpractice continues. No mention of energy, no mention of reducing barriers to business. They're finding new ways to put up barriers. Not a good thing. And sadly, the only way is you have a thrashing November elections. Then the White House may consider changes. But in the meantime, they're going to stick to the old songs.
Let me play something. Jamie Dimon gave a speech today, a J.P. Morgan banker, a very good banker, a very smart guy. You know him, I know him, and so forth. Here's some sound from Jamie Dimon.
It's a hurricane. Right now it's kind of sunny. Things are doing fine. You know, everyone thinks the Fed can handle this. That hurricane is right out there down the road coming our way. We just don't know if it's a minor one or Superstorm Sandy.
All right. It's interesting to hear him say that. Jamie's not always right, but he's a smart guy. He runs a very good bank, I think.
Yes, he does.
He's basically making the argument. I read the article. He's very worried about the Fed's tightening. They're going to pull cash out of the economy, raise rates. He's very worried about Ukraine with respect to higher oil prices, and I guess adding to that, higher food prices. He said at one point in this talk, oil could go to $150 or $175 a barrel. What do you think about his warnings?
I think he's warning the Fed. Do you really know what you're doing? You don't fight inflation by trashing an economy, which the Fed still believes. Oh, we got to slow things down, create some unemployment. Instead of increasing supply, they want to reduce demand. The exact wrong thing, exact opposite of what Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s, getting us out of the terrible 1970s. So I think he's firing a shot obliquely, because you're a bank, a large one, at the Federal Reserve, and also warning about events like Ukraine. Now, take, for example, Ukraine. Is this administration considering at all, in terms of the food crisis, of sending neutral ships into the Black Sea, into the ports in Ukraine, and have Vladimir Putin stop neutral ships to pick up food for starving people around the world? Are they even thinking about that? Giving the Ukrainians the means to blast those ships out of the way if necessary, or win that war? So Ukraine's a problem. What are you doing about it? So I think Jamie Dimon is pointing out there are these things out there, but the administration is not powerless to deal with them if they want to.
European Union is announcing they will not have any seaborne oil imports from Russia. That will knock out 75%, according to reports. By the end of the year, that'll knock out 90%. Oil's back to about $120 a barrel in the world market. Jamie Dimon is undoubtedly concerned about that. Biden is not. I mean, none of these people had anything to say. It's funny. Biden's article, my plan, Janet Yellen's, grieving, forgive me. Nobody mentioned the fact how people have put a freeze on oil and gas drilling, fracking, and pipelining.
Well, that's the strange thing. They really think putting up a couple of windmills or solar panels is going to deal with the shortfall. And so that's why I think, sadly, we have to wait till November. And the key thing is, as you point out with the cavalry's going to come. Cavalry has to know what in the world to do. And that's the thing that we got to work on, things that the Congress can do by putting out tax cuts, opening up federal lands. As we've discussed before, in Texas, if you have a piece of land and you drill on it, you can get a permit, want to drill on it, you get a permit in a few days. Federal government, months, if not years. So they can increase the supply, but as you've pointed out and others pointed out, they don't really want low energy prices. They really think the salvation is having all these alternatives which don't work. Not only will they be more expensive, but there'll be less energy. Bad for us, bad for the world. And that's what we got to call them out on. Why is Putin's oil or the Venezuelans' oil or the Iranian oil is more sacred than oil that comes from our own soil?
One of my themes on this, and I don't think I'm so far off until they're stopped, they basically, Mr. Biden, they all talk about this economy and transition stuff, economy and transition. So when he was in Asia last week, he didn't really deny higher gasoline prices. He just said, well, look, we're going to have this new climate change economy, and I hope it works, and God bless it, and all the rest of the stuff. The reality is, if you had a fossil-free, if you had, totally green economy, my argument is that would put us into a permanent recession with very high inflation and millions of job losses. That the Bidens are in denial amongst themselves. They have no alternative plan. As you say, a couple windmills not going to do the job. You have nothing against wind power, solar power, neither do I. But. I mean, what about a fossil-free economy? I think that's in the back of their minds. I think that was in one of the themes in this Wall Street Journal article yesterday from the president.
Well, like when the Federal Reserve talks about a soft landing, you better put your seatbelt on because they're going to give us a crash landing. When they talk about a transition, they're saying the thing that tough times you're going to go through, take the pain because glorious days are going to lie ahead. They're not. And it's not just going to be recession. Recession doesn't even begin to describe if you get rid of fossil fuels. We'll have a drastically lower standard of living. Lives will be shortened. Mortality rates, especially among babies, are going to go up because you're not going to get the medicines that we need. All the energy. Every major breakthrough in standard of living, whether it's automobiles, the internet, you name it, requires more energy. Not less energy, not more expensive energy. They're going against 200 years of history since the Industrial Revolution. And it's amazing. They call themselves progressives. They're going back to 500-year-old technology.
Dark Ages.
Dark Ages.
Dark Ages.
Why do they want us to live like we did in the 1800s? Explain that.
Why? What is this transition stuff? Let me step back. Here's the article. Joe Biden, my plan for fighting inflation. What is in here? I mean, I've looked at this now for 2 straight days. I've done 2 opening rips on the subject. The more I read it, the worse it gets. Why do you think he put this out? Is he warning us that a recession's coming? Is he setting up the Fed? Does he actually think that a new version of Build Back Better is going to conquer inflation, or raising taxes, confiscatory taxes?
I think they believe their own Kool-Aid, and they want us to drink their Kool-Aid. They've drunk it. And for example, he wants to reduce, he says, the number of jobs is going to go down to 150,000 a month. That's a good thing. What? Instead of 500,000 a month? And setting up the Fed. Who reappointed Chair Powell? Who reappointed these governors? If he thinks he can say, it's the Fed's fault, not mine, ain't going to happen. He now owns the Fed. He reappointed Powell. He appointed those governors. If he thinks he can run away from it, good luck with that.
What do you think of Yellen's apology? Just off the top.
He what?
Yellen's apology. What do you think? Why are they? So this is like they're running around saying we feel your pain on inflation and we're sorry, but she's not sorry. I mean, I played that clip. As I say, if you don't diagnose the problem properly, if you don't own the problem, you're never going to solve the problem. They're all running around doing this.
It's like the North Koreans in the old Soviet Union. When you had the crop failures, it's the weather that the economy stinks so much. It's always something else. And in this country, we haven't yet, in those countries, they'd shoot you because you're a saboteur. And the saboteurs today are heads of oil companies, meat packers, and Vladimir Putin. They blame everybody. And sadly, there's a whole history. Point that in the book, Inflation. There's a whole history of blaming others, whether it's Romans blaming Christians, medieval people blaming witches and the like. They always find a scapegoat, but it really points to them. And that's what they want to avoid having the public realize. But I think the public's onto them. And that article made it sound like, the Americans are saving so much. They have so much money. We're creating these glorious jobs.
Actually, the saving rate's way down. Consumer confidence is way down.
It's plummeting.
Real wages are way down.
And so what they don't understand is economics, not just numbers. It's people's trust in you.
Yeah.
That's where the dollar's on a precipice. They don't trust Joe Biden anymore.
I mean, it's just weird looking at Yellen. I know Yellen. She's a smart lady. It's like, I'm so sorry. We missed inflation. But it wasn't our fault, really. It was not our fault. I mean, I just think Americans see right through that. And I think they know a phony when they see one.
And if you want the job, you take responsibility for the job. Did Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War say, my predecessors, Buchanan and others, really left me a terrible situation? No, you deal with it. That's what Americans want, a firm, look forward, not looking backwards. Let the historians worry about the backwards. You got to lead us forward, and that's what they don't realize.
Cut tax rates, defend the dollar, we'll be fine, huh? Really?
We've done it before.
Let's not make this any harder than it needs to be. You're the best. By the way, I was for Forbes running for president, not once but twice, and it was my great pleasure. Steve Forbes, thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Larry.